Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today we are going to be tiling. We are doing these 3x6 subway tiles for the backsplash of our kitchen. Because of the way we had to make this face frame, our countertop sits away from the wall, and I don't really want that wooden gap in between. So I ended up picking up some of this Curdy board from Lowe's. It is a foam backer, usually to waterproof showers. It's a little bit more expensive than like using cement board, but cement board is way too heavy. There are different options for foam board. This was the only one I could find locally without waiting on shipping. Let's get in the van and I'll give you a little rundown on that. This is where the tile is going to be. It's a pretty small space. Basically from this edge over is about 24 inches, and it's another 18 or so out to this edge here. I just have this piece of half-inch ply to kind of show what the backer board is going to do. So this is that wooden gap on the face frame of the kitchenette. With the backer board coming out to here, the tiles will basically lie flush with where the countertop is, and then we'll be able to silicone in, around that edge, so you won't really see that gap anymore. And coming on this side, because of the size of the countertop and the box that I made for the kitchenette, and a slight angle that I didn't plan for with the wall, there's this little bit of a gap here. So putting that backer board will cover that up all the way out. One of the things I want to do is go all the way out to the seam here. So my plan will be to cut a board so that it will kind of cover into that gap and you won't be able to see it. But then the tiles will run right to the edge of this board. So to get the tile backer board to be flush in the doorway, I have this board that I cut. That backer board will run right up to this piece of wood, and then the tiles will lay flush with that corner as well. So making a little frame inside this wall with the two pieces of wood. I'm just going to cut the backer board pieces to fit on the back. So that fits up there nicely, a little bit of a gap on the top, which is not a big deal when the tiles are in. So now we can go ahead and figure on getting the electrical stuff cut out. And then once we do that, we can go ahead and get these attached to the backboards. One of the things I will remind you of, if you're dealing with your electrical, make sure you pull out a fuse or turn all power off if you can. So I made sure to pull out the fuse so this light switch is no longer working. Got that outlet in. The screws are big enough so that a tile can fit behind them. I'm gonna go ahead and get these boards attached now. I bought these washer and screw set that goes in, and so it makes it level so that your whole surface is perfectly level for when you're putting on your thin set. I marked out some spots where it's gonna go into the framing. Got that backer board all in. The outlet box is drilled into the wall. Katie made the executive decision. She didn't like the wide board that's there. So I cut a smaller board. I'm going to make sure that it lines up nicely with this seam. My next plan of attack will be to paint these two boards white. I will probably do that inside tonight. It is getting dark outside, so we're gonna call it an evening. We'll pick up tomorrow morning. It is day 2, and I put up the boards that I painted last night. One problem though, for this one, I put pocket screws in the bottom, and I was planning to do one in the top, but as you can see here, the angle of it cracked the outside. So I ended up, this is some paintable silicone that I put in there.
I probably will have to touch it up after I get the tiles in, because obviously that looks pretty terrible. The nice thing is, you know, if you're standing in here, you don't see that. One of the things I also did, I put some black weather stripping in behind there, so, you know, that gap is no longer that visible. This one here, I just went ahead and put some screws in the back. So I have 3 screws in here on the outside, 1 up in this cabinet to go through, and so now that is in nice and solid. I also went in and drew out where the switch will be and the 2 screws where they will be, because this one is a solid piece with just a hole, so we're gonna have to figure out cutting the tile to still have the plastic go on the outside of it, but get the hole without tile behind it, because I don't want to be drilling through tile. So one of the first things I'm going to do is get some of these tiles measured out to the half mark, the 3-inch mark, because we're going to have half tiles on the edge with full tiles on the edge. You know, they're going to stagger all the way up. So this tool, you basically just line up where you want to cut, and there's a little wheel on here that etches the edge of the tile. And then there's a little bar that you just push down and it snaps it where it was etched. So you have a nice clean break. So normally when tiling, you know, you start kind of in the center, like if you're on your big kitchen wall or something like that. You start in the center, work your way out, and then cut at the edges. Because we have so few tiles, I want a full and a half tile on the outside, and I'm going to start with a half tile down here. So I'm going to just start, I'm going to cut a couple of these tiles to fit because of this weird angle. I have a tile saw that I'm borrowing from a buddy, and I kind of wanted to just show you the way I normally would do it. You want to start at the bottom, get your measurement all the way to the wall, 5 1/4, and then you have to realize that you are going to have space on the wall and space between this with your spacers. So you have to take off 1/8 of an inch. Translating those measurements over that we had just made from the bottom and the top, the first one was 5 1/4, so we're going to mark that bottom one at 5 1/8. And then the other side, it ended up being 5 1/8. So we're gonna measure it to the 5-inch mark. I like to use a pencil normally, so that's why I put tape on here. And so you can just connect the dots with your pencil. And so that'll be the line that we're going to cut off. And that should give us that angle that we need. If you use a Sharpie, you can mark right on the face of the tile, and it will actually wipe off with Windex or just, you know, water even, because these are so glossy. So here's that skill saw tile saw, and you want to make sure, you can see that, to put water in the reservoir, because that will make sure your blade isn't dulling down too quickly. And it basically just works kind of like a table saw. Don't forget your safety glasses. The last thing to talk about, I ended up getting this Omni Grip. It's a tile adhesive that is supposed to be lighter weight than normal mortar or thin set. It's also highly flexible, so, you know, in a van, lots of vibrations, moving, having a normal thin set can definitely rattle some tiles loose and stuff. So I'm hoping that this will work well. One of the things though, normal type 1 stuff that you'd use in your kitchen and stuff like that, you can really cake it on. This stuff says you are not supposed to layer it too much, so not that we have to worry about, you know, leveling out a surface, because everything should be, you know, picture perfect straight walls with this backer board that we put in. But just to keep that in mind, you'll use your trowel. That's, you know, what you run, and you make those lines that you see. You want nice straight lines all around, and that will give the nice adhesion on the back of the tile. Some people also back butter tiles. If we have to, then we might back butter some of these, but I don't think we're gonna have to worry about it. Otherwise, there's a margin trowel. These, you know, you can take your stuff off, put it on the wall, use this to put it out, get it all, and then you can clean it off with this as well. Got the thin set open, you can just grab it, snack it on the wall. One of the things I will mention, as you go, keep putting the lid on and off. This stuff can only, you know, be out in the air for so long, or it starts to harden. That's, you know, why you put it on your wall. We'll just start going at it. Always making sure you're cleaning your trawl. You don't want any of that stuff to get stuck on there, or else you have to, you know, go really clean it off. Solid stick right away. There we go. There's the first wall up. These friggin' tiles, getting one to work without breaking it. I don't know if it's because it's starting to get cold outside. My fingers just working that saw was terrible. But I broke so many pieces because that is such a small line up there. I'm gonna see if I can't start working on this next side, and hopefully I can get it done before the night is out. It is done. My fingers are freezing. So now the plan is going to be to let this set for probably 3 days. It says allow 24 to 72 hours. Because it's outside and it's colder, I want to give it more time for that. So we'll probably wait a few days before we grout. I'm going to call it a night, and we're going to pick you up in a couple days. Well, it's been 5 days since we put the tiles on. That adhesive should hopefully be nice and strong and set. We ended up doing 5 days because it was raining nonstop. Wonderful North Carolina. I'm sure as you've watched my van build series, you know that that's kind of how it is. So we're gonna go ahead and get in here and grout those grout lines today. One of the first things you got to do is make sure all of those grout lines are cleaned up and the tiles are cleaned up. I suggest making sure you do it as soon as you can, maybe right after you do the adhesive, because it's easier to clean up then. As it sets, it gets harder and harder to chip away, and so you got to really put some elbow grease into it. One way though to come in and clean up some of those grout lines is just with a standard utility knife. You can kind of just etch off the side. Depending on the tiles that you have though, make sure that you're careful, because if you do scratch the face, the grout will show on those scratches. One of the things I do is just use my fingernail. Otherwise you can use a paint scraper too. The next step is make sure you tape off all of the things that you don't want grout to get on, because it is messy. For those framing pieces on both sides, I put tape on. I put tape over the outlet. I also, in this spot here, there is a square that I had to cut out for our light switch. I cut a line straight down this tile and cut a square out, you know, kind of out of each side. That line that I have cut there, where the screw's gonna go into, I'm gonna go ahead and caulk that with some white silicone, just so it doesn't stand out, because if we put grout in there, that cut will stand out. It's a lot wider than all of the other lines. I also noticed a couple of chips on two tiles, so I just put tape over those chips so that they stay closer to the white than the black that we're going to use for our grout. With that being said, we did get a black grout. It's Maypie's Flex Color CQ. This grout is supposed to have a little bit more flex to it, so it should be able to take the vibrations of the road better than some of the other standard grouts that you find. Paired with our flexible adhesive, I don't think we'll have any issues going forward, driving down the road and all that. If we do, I will definitely let you know. This is a Grout Float. One thing I like to have is a painter's tray on the side with some water in it, because if grout starts to dry on this, it will get very hard to use. So it's an easy way to keep this clean. As you start grouting, pick a section that you do, and then as it starts to set, you can take your sponge, which you should have a handful of sponges with you, 2 or 3 of these, and then you just go ahead and clean the surface off. As these start getting caked with grout, it gets more and more difficult to get it clean, and you'll want a completely clean one for your final wipe down. As you go, the tiles will be a little bit hazy, and so you're basically just cleaning off that haze as you continue. You don't want to be pulling it out of the grout lines, but you want to be, over the outside of the surface just to make the outside clean. Go ahead, just grab some grout, throw it on your float, and easy as that. Work it into all those grout lines. They suggest 45-degree angles across it works. As you're getting it in there, just doing whatever you can to just push it around. You want to not go overboard with the amount of grout you put on your grout float, because the more you have on here, the bigger mess that you will probably make. So see, just going at different angles across those lines. As you can see, some of it falling. But so that's the goal, just going at different angles so that it packs it in. So we'll go ahead, continue on with this, make sure we get it all finished. Here's the initial lines, how good they're looking. You can kind of see that haze over. Keep wringing your sponge out and have a couple of them, so as it gets dirty, you can kind of see how dirty it starts to get. Once it gets to a certain point, you need to get a new one to be able to get off all of that haze. So one of the next things I want to show you here, the float has a rounded corner on one side. You put it up to the edge and it cleans up that grout line quite a bit. You see how this one is so much thicker than the one we just went over. So as you clean it up, it pushes in and scrapes out the grout from on the edge of the tile. You see that little white fleck in the corner? That is some of the adhesive sticking through. Now is the time to go back and use your utility blade before everything dries, because otherwise it will be impossible to get that out. As you can see, you can kind of just flick it away a little bit, then just go ahead with some grout, fill that line back in, and hopefully we won't see that. Once I get that final run through, I'm gonna go ahead and let it dry here, at least give it overnight, if not 2 days. And then I'm gonna go ahead, get the switch holes drilled for, and then we'll get the white silicone in around where those holes are. I just got to make sure it lines up nicely and get that silicone in then before I set it in there, because I don't want it to get stuck in case we have to remove that switch for any reason. But then we'll get the faceplate on here, and then I will figure out some kind of trim to go over this top part. All right, guys, it's been a couple days. I went ahead and put some white silicone in the top here, because where the switch hits, you will see that above it just a little bit. On the bottom, it goes all the way down to that grout line, so I'm not going to have to worry. I went and picked up some 1 1/4 screws that fit through the hole on the light switch. I didn't have one that was skinny enough to do it. I think these are number 4. That'll be the last bit of the project here. There we go. Light switch is in. I put that faceplate on it. It fits nice and snug up in there. It looks really good. This project went pretty well. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell to be notified as we post new content. We'll have a lot more van build coming your way. Still working on finishing the bench seat. The pull-up pantry needs to happen. All of the drawer fronts and stuff for all around the van. So be looking forward to that stuff coming your way. We will see you guys on the next one. Bye.